wish we stayed the same. I got way too many thoughts in my brain, but I got memories that run through my veins. I'm not one to blame, but I could point out every way that you changed. Some things stay up while others go right down the drain. And lately we've been going down in flames. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm my therapist is saying that I should. I don't believe her, but I really wish I could. Instead, I guess I'll stay misunderstood. Oh, 'cause I'm stuck now, just trying to figure a way out. I've tried but can't seem to slow down, and I don't know if I want to. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm honest, I get in my feels when I want you. Say you feel it too, I'll haunt you. Hold on till I'm lost in nirvana. But if I'm
trouble. Oh, no, Rocky into the wall. Big crash front straightaway. Huge crash coming into the triangle. No, Rocky up and into the air.
They're beating and banging. Burn on the bottom. Cosman up top.
Kaufman, I think. No. Breyer by 1/1000th of a second. Joseph, no. At the line, Thunhorse pulls the win out at the stripe.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here?
Here comes the canvas. Get your foot in. He got it. He's got it. He's got it. The canvas is going to win.
He's going to wait all the way to the line. Now he hits the throttle and he's off, racing down towards turn 1. Still Ross Booth over Nathan Jew. That's David Schutt in the BMW peeking out to the outside. We've got 3 wide going into turn 1. Something's got to give. Amazingly, they all make it through. It's going to be David Schutt racing alongside Johan Shirazi there for second place.
I'm pleasantly surprised to see that this is working out, but we had a lot of nose-to-tail contact through the back of the field as they came to a halt for some of them through the Rettifielder chicane. But Carter Kundinger is up at the point with Mo Islam in second, and Nate Gruchelski is leading a trio of cars for that third position, Bill.
Indeed, so far relatively clean up front, but they're doing a good job. Kundinger had a really good qualifying run. I'm happy to see him out in front. He's been competitive all race. Now that he has some clean air in front of him, we'll see if he can run away.
You saw a little bit of a pop out from Paul Gibson going for that third spot from Nate Gruchelski. Doesn't look like Nate's going to be able to hold on to it, so they swap around as they complete lap 1. There you see them now coming across the start-finish line, but here we go again. And suddenly Nate has got another good run, and he's got a bump draft from Nathan Olson as well. In fact, that's going to work beautifully as they get very far up alongside Paul Gibson, and both are going to be able to overtake.
Shows you how powerful the draft is, and then when you get paired up with a buddy, you can really even make it better, and he just cruised right by Paul Gibson.
Absolutely did. So now they come through the Curva Grande up to the De La Roja chicane, and for the time being, Gruchelski's safe over Olson. Gibson going to have to play a little bit of catch-up to close those couple of car lengths behind them. Look at the absolute train with Dominic Dornenberg leading. That looks like Leighton, Fisher, Tinsey, Weatherholt, Smith, Huston, Wolf. It goes long ways back.
Looking back, this GT field is actually pretty calm. I'm happy we're keeping the cameras right here on the prototypes because some moves are being made a little bit further back in 7th, 8th, and 9th, but it's Ross Booth leading David Schutt right now in the GTs.
Yeah, so as they come into Ascari and out the other side, still very tight here behind Eddie Layton. Dominic Dornenberg actually able to put some distance between himself and that huge train, as that's Thomas Fisher now on the inside in the red, white, and blue. Can he make this one work? We saw last time it tends to go right back, Joey, with the slipstream down the front stretch, so I'm not sure this is the move.
Most of these cars, well, all of these cars are definitely running a high downforce setup, so it's just about kind of picking your time and when you're going to make that draft. And like you said, Joe, look, they're all lined up just waiting to pop out, waiting for that closing rate going into the next chicane.
Oh, and Olson overtook Gruchelski there for third as well, and a big hit between a couple cars. Looks like Fisher is one of them. Someone has to dive off course, 2 of them. That's Billy Smith, Peter Houston and Robert Tinsey that had to go off the course. That's Eddie Layton and Thomas Fisher, the other 2 involved that seem to have made contact.
Tinsey has been having a hard time all season. He has a reputation. He's got that history being so dominant in the prototypes. Hasn't been able to get that past glory back.
Not quite yet, and you can see the effect that this has had on them as now we jump a little bit forward to Olson, Gruchelski, and Gibson once again. Gibson seems to be the odd man out as the 2 Nathans have been swapping back and forth, and it looks like we might do so again. No, he's going to sit patient behind down into Ascari. Sounds like we are finally getting a little action down to the GT Pros, though, Joey.
Yeah, Ross Booth is starting to run away with it, but I tell you what, David Schutt in the BMW, I think, is starting to hold up a couple cars behind him. Looks like Johan Shirazi as well as Ryan Wasilewski. I think that David Schutt might be running a little bit more downforce in that BMW. You see him scoot away in the brake zones and through the tighter, twistier bits, but the rest of this pack definitely hunts him down on the straightaway.
Yeah, so the BMW might have quite a bit of grunt, but not enough slipstream to really shake off guys like Shirazi and Wash, with Nathan Jew in there tight behind as well. Out of the second Lesmo, this is one of the longer straights coming down into Ascari. Anybody going to make a move here? If it's going to be someone, I got to think Jew is the closest amongst them, catching up to Wasilewski, but no dice.
And to talk about Nathan Jew real fast, Joe, is that he's actually the biggest loser out of this front pack. He's lost 3 positions since the start of the race, so I would expect him to have a lot of pace in that Porsche and probably start to move forward through these guys.
Certainly looks like it. We had an issue for Josh Wolf. Looks like he lost connection for quite some time. And when he reappeared, he was off course at the exit of Ascari. And now he's all of 17 seconds behind the entirety of the LMP2 field. So that'll be a mystery until we can have a chat with him to find out what exactly happened out there. Meanwhile, this P2 battle not going away, and it's a lot closer with Shirazi. Is he going to save fuel? Is he going to go for it? Let's see. He's going for it.
Shirazi's definitely taking a look down into turn 1 side by side. I think David Shutt knew that he was just going to cruise on by, and here we got Ryan Wasilewski next up behind the PG-13 BMW.
This is starting to separate a little bit here. They've got Bradley Haley at the end of it in 6th place, but from there it's about 2 seconds down to Young Park. We're seeing glances of them and some of the longer shots on these extensive straightaways. There you can just see them there poking in the background before they go through De La Roja. But so far, so good for Shirazi. Shutt maybe not fighting too hard since it is so early in this race. And Joey, we haven't seen these guys go through them to lap them yet.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You know, it seems relatively clean and straightforward right now, but yeah, the prototypes have yet to come up and mix it up through the GT field, and that always throws everyone for a loop.
That's Gibson finally getting that 3rd spot back from Olsen and Gruchelski. And despite being right up on top of him, Olsen doesn't seem interested in trying to attack here into De La Roja. It does appear that they're catching up to Mo Islam, who's in 2nd place. So interesting to see that some of that pace has come back to them. And they've been able to gain on that 860. But also Islam is dropping off of Kundinger. It's about 3 seconds from him to the leader.
Both Kundinger and Islam having the race of their season so far. Islam's best finish so far this season has only been 6th position. Now Gibson's coming off of 2nd place last time out, so look for the 31 to be moving up quick.
And here's the first of the lap traffic. This is Chad Dick from the GT AMS, along with, that looks like Tom Hammond as well, that they're going by and sucking right up to the rear wing. Gibson, again, bump drafting on Mo Islam before backing off into Parabolica.
It's going to get busier because they're just hitting the back end of the GT field. As they start to get through the middle part of this GT field, look at all the traffic they're coming up to. It starts to get more and more condensed, and all of these chicanes are single file through them.
Ooh, Gibson going for it. Islam doesn't defend. Paul gets down to the inside. Islam tries to outbrake him as we got a car off course there, and now Mo finally has to give it up. That is Boyd Payne that was off course. Not sure if he had any help or what.
Yeah, Boyd Payne in that Mercedes. No, looks like he was just by himself in that braking zone. A little bit of a misstep into the grass, and around he went.
Oh, did almost run into, I think, yeah, Andrew Lunsford had a very close moment avoiding that car. But right now, we're watching Carter Kundinger show how close you have to be willing to get to some of these cars to not lose pace and really overtake them in some sketchy spots behind them. The battle for second is having to do the same thing, and it's causing problems. In fact, we had a car spin across track. That's going to be Sean Reese, and he runs into Sheldon Rosenbaum in the process.
Yeah, that's still right in the middle of the GT field. Hopefully the track is clear. As we see, they got that Lamborghini off to the right side. We'll see how much damage the car has. It looks to be driving relatively straight, though.
Sheldon Rosenbaum already got going, but that is Boyd there that's trying to trundle along in that Lamborghini. So at least they were able to drive it away. It's still way too early for the pit window. And let's see if we can figure out what happened here. Got a little shove, was out in the gravel, and lost control.
Unfortunately, yeah, that Ferrari, I'm not sure who else was involved, but it just had nowhere to go. And when you're on the throttle in the gravel, it tends to really hook on you, and that's exactly what happened to that Lamborghini.
Real shame for them out there. Gibson still in third, Islam fourth, but looks like Gruchelski and Dornberg, did they swap positions? Looks no, it was Nathan Olson got by Paul Gibson. That's
Yeah.
what I was missing.
Yeah, Olson's got up into second spot now, so he's got those 2 wins already, sitting at the top of the points, seeing if he can run down Kundinger. These guys really haven't raced. Kundinger and Olson really all season long have been separated by 4 or 5 cars on the grid. So this is the first time they'll actually get to see these guys go at it.
Do you see in the background there just an absolute traffic jam? In fact,
Whoop.
Mo Islam had a problem. He's off the course, and it looks like he did wind up in the wall.
Lost his tail.
Oh, boy. So that's going to be really rough here. And in fact, if I'm seeing right, that may have been contact with Andrew Lunsford, who's already had issues here today.
Take a look at this replay here. See exactly what happens. You see Mo duck to the inside. There's a lot going on here. Oh, it just looks like he gets into a satellite car that was already in the chicane. I'm not going to blame the GT on that. I think Mo might have just been in a little bit too deep. Oh, unfortunately, he backs it into the wall, and that's what causes the damage.
And now, Joey, Bill and I have covered many seasons of Autobahn, so we kind of know what to expect, but that's from up here. You're the only one of the 3 of us that's actually been down in the trenches. What's it like out there?
Oh, well, take a look at what Paul Gibson is going through the GT leaders right now, because it is busy. And let me tell you, you kind of have to focus forward and just let the prototype guys do their thing. There's no stopping them. You can kind of posture yourself in a certain track position, but more often than not, they just get mad and send it on you anyways.
Joey, I don't want you to name names, but are there some drivers when you see them in the rearview mirror, you have a different driving style than if you got another one?
I can't say that, but there's definitely times that you have to posture yourself and other times that you kind of open the door.
Well, on board here with Gibson, Olsen still giving chase. They've lost up to 6.7 seconds, and just goes to show, because Gibson's been slicing through this traffic, and yet he's still losing time to Carter Kundinger. That's how much of a difference it can make in those skills of trying to overtake the slower GT cars. That one's going to be nice and easy down the stretch to Ascari and not give Nathan Olsen much, at least this time.
The report on the GT field, Ross Booth is still leading the way 2.5 seconds, but second place runner Johan Shirazi, now third place Ryan Wasilewski, Nathan Jew in the 4th place, so David Schutt finds himself in the 5th spot now, falling all the way back. I think he just is trying to hang on to the tail end of the draft of the lead pack at this point.
Booth has been so consistent all year in that class. Couple of wins, couple seconds, then had that bad result at Indy, but I think he's got it back now.
I believe Indy was the first time that he finished off the podium, as we watch Booth take it down into the first chicane once again, 2.2 seconds over Shirazi. And you'll need that, as watch them just bobbing and weaving on their way down to the chicane, trying to avoid the cars as Olsen had to cut across the chicane. That's going to be a slowdown penalty, and he's overtaken by Gibson because of that, as now we got side by side here between Margarella and Ensing. Ensing comes out ahead.
This is the battle for P2 in the GT AMs between Margarella and Ensing, and Robert Rattray is just a couple seconds right up in front. You see how close it gets on the braking with just all the different braking markers between the drivers, and I don't think that any of this traffic is going to separate, because once it does, a prototype runs through and condenses it all back up.
Yeah, I saw a big spin of the rear wheels for Eric Thomas in the background there. He's got Jimbo Pfeiffer in the red and white machine that is trying to stick with him, but has a poor run coming off the second Lesmo. So that's going to deny him a chance on this one. And we're about a quarter of the way through now. It just really flies by when these races happen in Autobahn, just because so much is going on constantly out here.
Now, to that point, and also what we were talking about just with being out there on track, we're watching how busy it is. Here's Paul Gibson trying to dice his way up through this traffic. Some of these cars, they need to be on a low downforce setup, given that this racetrack is such straightaway dependent. But with how much traffic there is, having a click or two a wing might not be a bad thing, given that it is 60 minutes of a racing.
That's something I hadn't considered before. See if anybody goes for that strategy as Olsen gets to the inside of Gibson. This time he's going to make the chicane successfully, and he'll hold on to that third spot. So, or excuse me, second spot ahead of Paul Gibson, and then take off around the Curva Grande. Now up to 8 seconds behind Kundinger with all this back and forth.
I think that Paul Gibson has really tuned in here, but Nathan Olson seems to have a little bit of pace. I'm looking, he's one of the biggest prototype movers. He's up 4 spots from his starting position of 6th, and with him getting around Gibson, looks like maybe just 1 or 2 more GT cars, and then he's got a little bit of clean air. We'll see what his pace is.
Another one that's up 4 spots is Dominic Dornberg, sitting in 5th position, started in 9th. He's got a little bit of a time, a little bit of a distance before he gets to Gruskowski, but nevertheless, a nice run from Dornberg.
Just kind of hovering in the mirrors this time, not going to attack into the final chicane there. Gibson going to stay patient. What about through this part where we've seen them gain quite a bit of time, but then sometimes have to pay it right back coming onto the main straight? Nope, he's not going to make the overtake here. Maybe just setting himself up on that number 32 as they fly their way around the 180-degree corner and then back down the opposite direction along the pitch straight. He lost a little time in the aero wash, but now they pick up speed, 165 miles an hour already, and they're still at the start of the stretch. Then it starts to narrow up. No, I think he's a little too far behind for the time being. Down for the AM leaders, we were talking about Insing and Margarella fighting for second. Well, it's now a battle for the lead because they've caught Rattray.
Yeah, and we've got prototypes diving their way through as well. That's Mo Islam working his way back up through the field, but Rattray is the white and red Porsche trying to defend, but Ensings goes around the long way. He's going to move up to the lead in the GT AM division.
Nice move there from the 25, but how long is he going to hold on to it? Will we see that swap back around? And that was BMW versus Porsche. As we said earlier, BMW's known for having quite a bit of oomph underneath them. Clearly a little bit better than the Porsche this time. And then he's got another BMW behind him as well. Will we see a repeat of that next time they go down the front stretch? All of them successfully taking through the De La Roja chicane.
And Joe, one thing I wanted to mention about that prototype battle we were watching between Olson and Gibson, if we remember, these cars do have to make a pit stop here, so it might not mean much, but a little bit of fuel saving could work in terms of an undercut and or overcut.
Yeah, we have a 60-minute race this time, so 1 pit stop for all the classes.
I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen more drivers trying to play some fuel games out there, especially up at the front, where they're not really going to be able to do much by just swapping back and forth like that. And it might be better to try and get a little tricky, as these 3 are going to stay in position. But I can tell you that for third in the pros, Jew and Wasilewski have been very tight together. And it does look like Nathan is actually kind of playing that fuel game because he's been pushing along the 86.
I think that maybe not the fuel game. I think they're actually trying to work together and bump draft down the straightaways, because Ross Booth is 2.5 seconds out in front of Shirazi, who is 2.5 seconds out in front of Wasilewski right now.
Yeah, that could be a case of, well, if we have any hope of trying to catch them, we're going to need a 2 heads are better than 1 sort of situation here. So we'll see if they stick with that as they come up into the Curva Grande now. And we are getting closer to that pit window as well. It begins to open, though few drivers usually come in early like this. They tend to go until a little bit later in the stint, unless you're farther in the back and have nothing to lose to try and take a gamble. Big kick up of the dirt there from Wasilewski, and Nathan Jew says, all right, well, I'm not going to sit around for this one. I'm through.
I think that's...
Oh, go ahead, Joey.
I was just going to say, I think that's a good move from Nathan Jew. If anything, I think he's got a little bit more pace based off of the qualifying order, and we see it here already. He's already starting to scoot out ahead of Ryan.
Jew in the Porsche, and of course, Wasilewski started the season in the McLaren. He's given up on that one now, racing the BMW.
Yeah, they have a few changes, or have had a few changes over the course of the season for the balance of performance, and the league allows the drivers to swap cars sometimes when iRacing does that and changes the performance. Since obviously you couldn't have known that at the start of the season, and might be undesired effects that you didn't want and how it handles. So as they come down into the final turn. Let's see if he's going to be close enough to push along his friend, or will he do something different this time? Or will we see anybody take the gamble and maybe try to pit in?
I think that's just the ultra short autocross, cut as much off of the track as we can line coming out of the final corner. And it is worth a little bit something, you know. Any shorter distance you can run on a track, it's gonna make a less of a lap time, so it's never a bad idea. But we're already seeing Nathan Jew start to scoot out ahead of Ryan Wasilewski. I think Ryan just really needs to focus on staying on the back of that Porsche. That's what he needs to do at this point.
Pit window going to be a lot bigger for the GT3s. The prototypes are really limited to maybe a lap or two. They can't do such hijinks that maybe some guys might want to do in the GT3s.
Yeah, that's a good point. That things are a little narrow for them, especially at this track, which is very thirsty. Hence why we expect some fuel games to be played. Back up to that battle for second in GT-AM. Rattray losing touch with Ensing. So Corey not only ran him down, but has passed him and really left him behind. And it's only Margarella behind Rattray right now. Eric Thomas and Jimbo Pfeiffer, who are directly behind, are in the pro class. So while that is for the overall GT position, that's not for class position.
You called it. Once Corey got by, he's really been doing some impressive lap times, actually faster lap times than the cars in front of him. So he's just kind of left Robert Rattray and Franco Margarella here in the dust, and pretty impressive if I've seen it, you know, because he's doing 120 or 149 lows, which it should put him up inside the top 5 at this point.
Well, there's still plenty of race left to go. Things could change around, maybe just saving his stuff for later on. Of course, this track not really known for being all that harsh on tires. But staying out of trouble often is job one when you're racing in Autobahn. Just getting to the finish can be an accomplishment sometimes.
Joe, we talked about the character of the races in Autobahn. They usually seem to take on a character either pretty clean or pretty messy. I'm knocking on my Formica here. I think we got a clean one in store today.
Relative to a lot of Autobahn races, this is a pretty clean race. Yeah, we had a bit of excitement at the start, but this is really settled in. But we've also seen this story before, Bill, and the end of the race just completely flip-flops it. So I'm not holding my breath yet as Carter Kundinger there is the gap all the way down between Ascari and Parabolica. That is monstrous.
Yeah, I don't know what Carter Kundinger had for breakfast today, but he needs to have it on alternate Mondays because, man, he's flying. Do it again, Carter.
It's looking good right now, but he doesn't have that checkered flag yet, so still has to keep it together. Continue to watch Olsen and Gibson. I do think, you know, after we had said something about Gibson here, Joey, it does look like the 31 is kind of settling in behind the 32 now.
So I'm going to give away a little bit of inside knowledge here. I raced with the PG-13 guys, who Paul Gibson is on the team, and these guys are very smart. Paul is always switched on to what's happening out there. I would not be surprised if he's just hanging out in the slipstream, saving a little bit of fuel. This is actually the biggest it's grown out to be, is about 7/10, so he's still well within the draft.
Joe, I wonder if Gibson isn't saving, Gibson isn't saving fuel. Maybe because they're tight on fuel. Maybe this isn't a case of maybe a shorter pit stop. Maybe it's a case of having enough fuel to race hard to the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. I talked about saving your stuff. It's not just the tires, but if you have that extra fuel, yeah, you can push a little harder if you take the same amount as your rivals. As we come down into Ascari, caught up quite a bit with that traffic after he had been held up earlier on in the lap, and that brings him back down to 0.3 of a second. About 2 more laps, and I'd say we've officially hit the halfway mark of this race.
So we were covering that GT-AM second place battle, and it looks like Robert Rattray is actually now holding up about 5 GT cars behind him. So it'll be something that we'll have to watch through the pit stop cycle, see if one of these cars dips in early or stretches it out late another couple laps. And oh no, we've got problems in the first chicane. That looks to be Ed Idringson and Brian Bennett.
Then somebody in one of the Audis got hit a second time there trying to get the car turned around as they were prone across the track. This is Ed Eisenring, who's getting back going now in the Porsche, and that's going to send him down to 31st. It's a massively large GT field here today, so that tells you that he's still not at the tail end of the field despite being stationary that long.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get a replay here. You're going to see the Porsche lose it by himself on the brake zone and just kind of park in the middle of the racetrack. We're going to see the Audi have nowhere to go, gets tagged from the rear, and then here comes the big hit right here. Boom.
Yeah, just kind of wrong place, wrong time. And you can't blame Ed for wanting to get it off the course and turned around, so that's what caused him to run into the Sector 5 machine. So let's see what caused him to spin. This is from on board. Yeah, too much speed.
Yeah, just a little bit too much speed. And yeah, you can't fault him. That's just where he ended up. And then Brian Bennett was right there. He tried to clear the racetrack, but it's just so narrow right there. Like you said, wrong place, wrong time.
Unfortunate. Well, that's a little bit of action that we weren't expecting, and I do believe it's been relatively calmer than usual. So why don't we take a very short break here on FTF.GG? We'll be back after this. Welcome back. We have our final 31 minutes here in the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. You're watching Paul Gibson in third as he slides it through the first chicane, trying to hold off Nate Gruchelski. I'm Joe Peak with Soups On and Joey Atterbury. Carter Kundinger leads our prototypes right now. Ross Booth leads the GT Pros, and Corey Ensing leads the GT Ams. As we take a look at Gibson, trying to get it woed up in time just behind the car of Cameron Bidwell before he can finally poke out. And I think both are going to be able to sneak by. Yes, indeed. Gruchelski carries on past. Ooh, but a big slip there coming off of the first Lesmo.
Gruchelski really hasn't anybody to race with all time. Gibson's well out in front of him. Dornberg's way back. He's been all by himself. The only thing he has to worry about is the lap traffic. Go, Joey.
Well, no, I was going to go back to your point earlier in the broadcast, Soup, where you were asking about drivers and if you got to drive anybody differently out there. And the prototypes that we're actually watching right now, I do have to drive Paul Gibson differently because he's actually one of the most respectful drivers out on the racetrack. And looks like Gruchelski actually has a pretty good run heading down in the last corner. He doesn't decide to make a move right now, but Paul is one of those guys that you expect him to send it down in there, but he's actually really respectful, and he kind of surprises me out there.
we saw on screen Nathan Jew was in the pit stall and went up on the jack. So he took tires and he's back out and running. Now that's, I think, our first scheduled stop of any of the GT cars, because I don't see anybody else that's come in and taken a standard pit stop time. So he's the first to blink at just about exactly halfway, and it will return him in 16th.
I think I see maybe Nathan Jew is probably the earliest of our front-running GT cars. He just left pit lane and he's working the exit of the first chicane right now. He's probably the first of the GT players to really pit.
Absolutely. And so he's back out and running, but we get a few more in from the LMP2s. Peterson and Bow have pitted in. Houston also pit during the break. And I believe Thomas Fisher has pitted probably about the time we got back, it looks like, since he is on his out lap right now. And we're starting to see more and more try and affect their strategies at this stage. The real question is, when do the leaders come in here and take theirs? This is, I think that's our leader overall, Carter Kundinger, here being followed by Young Park and Wayne Castile. That's for 6th in the GT Pros. And there is that leader just going by Bradley Haley and David Shutt now on the main straight, just popping off to the side, try and find some of that open air before he spots his brake marker, slams on the brakes, gets it slowed up all the way down to about 50 miles an hour, and tiptoes through. Paul Gibson is pitting. So there's one of our front runners in the prototypes that is pitting in.
Yeah, I made a comment maybe that Gibson was saving fuel so he'd have enough to race with at the end. I think I was off base on that one based on how far they've gone past the halfway mark. I don't think doing this on one stop is an issue. So maybe Gibson was just saving for a shorter pit stop. I don't really know. They fuel so quickly. I don't really know if saving a little bit of fuel makes all that much in the pit stop. Maybe it does.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think we're just kind of figuring out as it goes. Joey might have a little more info than we do on that, but I don't know how much he's allowed to give up in terms of that sort of stuff. Poor David Shutt has been having some blinking issues all race long, as we just saw. So hopefully that doesn't cause him to get into some trouble out there, because right now he's trying to shake Bradley Haley for that last step on the podium.
Just to drill down a little bit on Gibson, I really think Gibson was faster than Olsen. So maybe this is what would that be, Joe, an undercut when you come in early?
Yep, that's an undercut, and he's back out ahead of actually Colin Weatherholt, who just pitted. So Colin Weatherholt's now in, and Leif Peterson is one of the others that have pitted behind Paul Gibson. So Gibson is now the highest driver to have pitted, and we got to wait to see what happens with guys like Gruchelski and Olsen. Oh, and Carter Kundinger pits.
Yeah, this is a case where my dad used to say, when you're the prettiest girl at the prom, you don't really need to worry about fancy shoes. Kundinger is so dominant here today. He just needs to come in, keep this simple, keep this clean, don't do anything dumb, and just bring home the win.
Carter was the prom queen.
And Dominic Dornenberg is going to follow in. Looks like Olsen, Gruchelski, Smith all going to stay out. Robert Tinsey pitting. So this should give us a sense of Olsen versus Dornenberg at least. Should be out ahead of him as long as something didn't go terribly wrong. Right now, this is Olsen going past David Shutt as that is Eddie Layton behind them. He's within the LMP2 class, but he is not on the same lap as our current leader, although Olsen will probably be holding it up. Olsen will probably be giving it up here in just a moment. We continue following around. Kundinger, for what it's worth, came out in what looks like 4th place. Oh, Dornenberg emerged ahead of Gibson. He was 5 seconds quicker on the pit stop.
I wonder if maybe Gibson had some damage from jumping curbs or going through traffic, because that's the only thing that would explain it.
Yeah, his is the only 30-second stop. Everybody else is looking at 25 to 28 seconds. So much
for the undercut strategy from Gibson.
Yeah, it is not working That'd be my guess as well, that he just found himself repairing some damages. We see a couple cars off. Lunsford, who's been in lots of drama today, just edged Eisenring off the course there through De La Roja. Now, one thing we do want to mention, since we assume you're a fan of FTF.GG, since you're watching right now, we've only got 33 days until the Bar Visuals FTF 500. For more info, go to FTF.GG. Looking forward to that race over at Daytona. Meanwhile, now as we see Carter Kundinger come around, he should re-inherit the lead because Gruchelski, Smith, Olsen, all in the pits.
Yeah,
Lots
really all. Go ahead, Joey.
Lots of action in pit lane between the prototypes and GT cars. I've been watching that Bradley Haley, David Shutt battle. They're going to stay stagnant to hold positions there, but it's busy coming out of pit lane.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
with Gibson's trouble, really all the drama has gone out of it. We'll see how this sorts out.
Somebody having a side-by-side battle there in front of them. I think that was Jason Iverson and Luke Schmidt. That's for 12th in the GT cars. And this is the other tricky thing about coming out of pit lane, Joey, is the difference in braking into there.
Yeah, we were talking about a pre-race show, sim racing and real racing, just the passing on pit exit. There's just a lot of stuff that's aggression that's going on right now. And here comes Nathan Olsen trying to take a look at the inside of Nate Gruchelski. He is going to make that look and promote Olsen back up into that second spot.
Nathan's been fantastic today. Oh, but now things are going to get a little sketchy. We mentioned that battle for position. He splits the middle and keeps it safe somehow and will stay ahead of Gruchelski. But sometimes you just got to take those risks if you don't want to lose the spot right back.
You have to. Go.
Gruchelski was a lot faster than Olsen on the pit stop by about 3 or 4 seconds. That's how he was able to get that spot. Olsen should run away. Think things are going to settle into spots. Everyone locked into their position that they see on the tower right now. Don't see a lot of changing going on. Maybe Gibson can make his way up after that bad stop.
Dornenberg still defending on Paul Gibson. Remember, he got overtaken by Dominic in the pit stops as he weaves around to the left-hand side, gives it another try. But I've said it quite a bit already today. And again, I'll reiterate, you're going to just get slipstreamed right past again on the front stretch. So there we go. Gibson does not continue with the attack. He now sets himself up for the exit.
I'm taking a closer look at this number 31 car as he's drafting Dominic Dornberg. I'm not sure he's actually going to have enough speed to pass him. I'm seeing some pretty heavy damage on the back end of it, and Paul Gibson's still going to take a look down the inside. He's got GT cars too wide in front, got to be smart.
You're seeing damage on Gibson, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm seeing damage on the back of Paul Gibson's car.
Which would explain the long pit stop, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the drop in pace.
Exactly. Well, you saw as he was in a straight line, he couldn't manage to pull past despite having the momentum from the slipstream. And here they go past David Shutt. There's just not enough width on this track. He has to stay patient and stay single file. He's trying to use that good exit speed, but gets checked up.
I think that's an example of the pace that, Soup, you were talking about that Gibson has. He's got a lot of pace. I just think that the car is holding him back right now.
Coming out of the second Lesmo now. He'll start to suck up behind Dornenberg. This has got to be frustrating, too. Remember, he was vying for podium positions. Now he's down in 6th and can't seem to go anywhere. So that's going to weigh on him a little bit, thinking, what happened? I used to be so quick, and now it's just all falling apart.
Well, I think he still is quick, but only through the twisty sections. I think it's the straight line speed that's killing him.
Absolutely. And coming up towards Parabolica now, looking for the braking. Maybe just needs to get himself a little bit of a longer slingshot. Just, back it up like this. And then maybe he can get more of a run as he starts to reel back in that black and green car. Going to be into the toe now as he had to wait, trying to pop into there because of the GT car. Weaving around another of our BMWs. Gaining and gaining, but not enough.
Here's one of the things I think that Paul is going to run into, though, is that even if he's able to pass Dominic like he is right here, you see he gets the better exit. He's going to take the run up the outside, which will be the inside going into this next chicane, but here in the acceleration just doesn't have the top speed. And to go to my point, if he gets around Dornberg, I think Dornberg's just going to be able to draft right back by in the next straightaway.
Yeah, most likely. It seems maybe that's why he's kind of waiting here. It's not just frustration, just not willing to try and make some more risky moves, and knows he's got to get to the end of the race and just snipe him there, because they've got 20 minutes left to go. So a third of the race is still remaining. Here's another good run. So this will be telling right here, because they've got no other traffic to cause him to have to jump out of the slipstream this time. He's pulling in, but he brakes pretty early.
They're actually approaching the 2 GT lead battle here. Now, Shirazi has not caught Booth, but you see him in the same screen, these two Porsches. Slowly but surely, he is reeling in Ross Booth, our leader, only about 1 second back now.
Not to jinx things, but we have Robert Rattray leading the GT-AMs. He won the first race in the GT-AM category. So will we finally get that repeat winner?
Shirazi's been about 1/10 of a second faster over the last 5 laps. So, yeah, he is trying. I don't know if he's going to have enough time to get Booth, but he's getting there.
Yeah, he'll need about a 10th a minute here, a little bit less than that, really, and he could still catch up to him. Now it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass. As we've seen, this track not known for being difficult to pass unless you have some bad aerodynamics on the car. As you can see, the traffic continuing to just having to pop in and out there on the front stretch. Oh, and a spin from Vance Bow. Thankfully, everybody's super heads up in the moment and just goes around the apex where he gets parked.
Really easy to do if you have a little bit too much rear brake bias and just a few other variables, like you see those GT cars coming up in your windshield way too fast. And want to go back and report on the rest of that GT battle. After I repeated everything you said about Nathan Ju's pit stop, it looks like he was able to gap Ryan Wasilewski by about 2.5 seconds in that pit cycle, and now he's just kind of running a lonely race there in the 3rd position.
Gibson just got by Dornenberg down into Ascari, and this was a pretty straightforward move. Just managed to get the draft on him, overtook him into the turn. Now it's going to be where it's telling on whether or not he can break the draft. It does look like, oh, he's trying. You can see he's using up those incident points going off the track here, trying to see if he can shake the 913.
What a great camera shot we got. Here he comes, and there he goes.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think Gibson even got on the radio laughing about it. So at least he's taking it in good humor right now. He knows he's in a bad situation, but Darnell Williams just had a little slide in front of them. Maybe that's the key that he needs here, Joey. Maybe he needs some traffic to separate them.
Yes, he needs something in order to separate them. I think that passing them into Ascari was probably his best bet in order to, like, maybe get a little bit of a gap in track position, but you saw how fast Dominic Dornberg was on the straightaway. I think no matter what Paul Gibson does, he's a sitting duck on the straightaway.
Yeah, he's just really got to get far enough away to break that draft and use that extra pace through the rest of it to get away from them. As there on the screen, we were watching some of our Porsches down the front stretch, and we come back onto the run to Parabolica here. Sounds like Ghost just had a tow. I'm not sure what that's about.
Yeah, it sounds like Matt Gosh, another one of those PG-13 racing crew guys. Not exactly sure what happened. I know he wasn't having the smoothest of days already, unfortunately hit the tow button.
Down into the braking of Ascari here. We watch Leaf Peterson. No, excuse me. That's oh no,
this is Gosh right here. Yeah.
Oh.
Like I said, I don't think that Matt was having the best of days already, and I think that was just the end of it right there.
Glad to see the corner marshals just spring into action as well there to take care of the car off the track. But as we watch Carter Kundinger down into Ascari, it's up to 9 seconds. Well, I say up to 9 seconds. I think it was higher than that earlier. So I wonder if Carter's just kind of managing the gap from here.
Yeah, he has really had it his way. He can take his time through traffic, just relax. What a dominant performance, both not only in the race, but in qualifying too. He's had it his entire way.
Flip that around completely, and the GT pros are the exact opposite. But it looks like Shirazi is going to have to give that up. He was right on top of Booth. He must have cut the corner coming through the first chicane because he has given up a lot of time now.
He cut the first apex, the right-hander, just a little bit too aggressively, and that's what you're seeing in the slowdown here. But it'll be interesting working, now less than 15 minutes. Shirazi has caught Booth. That means he has more pace than Ross, but has been Ross saving the tires and letting that happen?
I don't know. We'll see. Right now he's in the Porsche versus another Porsche, so it's same deal for each of them. Unless Johan has been saving and is now just applying all the pressure now that he has saved his rubber. They've got about 5.5 seconds over Nathan Jew. And in the meantime, Franco Margarella? No, who was that?
Rattray.
Oh. Wow. Okay, so Rattray now down out of the podium in the AMs. Corey Insing returns to the top step.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Robert Rattray just got on the grass in the braking zone, a self-spin going into the second chicane. We're going to catch the replay here. Watch the right side of the car. Just clips the grass and no saving it from there.
Well, Rattray had an AM win already this season, so with him gone, maybe you think we might get another one. Nope, Ensing is a winner as well. So I think that streak of 5 different winners is going to end this time.
I mean, statistically, Bill, it gets harder for
you start running out of drivers, yeah.
Yeah. So somebody's got to be able to try and get that double, though it's not. It doesn't have to be. It could go different winner each and every race, but that'd be absolutely amazing. Corey Ensing, though, doing a fantastic job. Question is, can he keep Margarella behind? But Franco has also taken a win. So we'd still have a repeat winner. And yeah, I think the number 11 was just sitting and waiting patiently there. So the Georgian decided he's going to play the long game and just kind of hold on behind the 25 until it gets to be critical time.
It's been a good fight, though. If you remember, Corey Ensing scooted away almost 2 seconds ahead of Margarella, but Margarella's reeled him back in. We'll have to keep an eye on this as it winds down. Now only about 12 minutes remaining with about 2 minutes laps. It's not very many laps, only about 5 or 6 more laps, Joe.
Apologies. Franco has not won yet this season.
I was going to correct you if it became an issue, but no. So we got a shot there, Joe.
Interesting. So depending on what side of the fence you're on in terms of that record, you could be cheering for Franco, you could be cheering for Corey here, but they are running both in BMWs, much like we see the dual Porsches at the lead of the GT Pros. So no real distinct advantage in any sort of area unless they have different setups on the car.
Let's jump to the lead GT battle because Shirazi's officially on the draft of Booth. We're going to see if he looks down into turn 1. Booth is going to go defensive into a braking duel side by side into the first chicane. We'll see what happens here. Booth is going to take the advantage based off of track position, but look at, he really leaves the door open. Drag race down to the next chicane.
Surprised that he was able to pull back away from him. I thought he came off of that corner. So weird, but he got the throttle down perfectly, and now he is back ahead. But for how long? Because there we see Shirazi is not taking no for an answer. He tries to stick his nose in, but can't quite get there as they cross out of De La Roja. Shirazi with another slowdown penalty for cutting too much of that inside curb.
It's going to be a long 11 minutes for Ross Booth. Go ahead, Joey.
He didn't quite have the track position on Ross to really shove his nose up in there, and you saw Ross just slam the door shut. I think Shirazi was expecting maybe half a car width at least.
He's trying to give that time back very slowly because he's still got that penalty hanging over him. I'm watching to see when it finally goes away, and he's paying the price for it now. He's far back. He's going to have a lot of work to do to get it back. It's still there. Oh, now he's really slowing up in front of traffic. That's not going to make him any friends.
It's such a tough game. You're battling that slowdown timer, and I know exactly what he's doing. He's just trying to give it back incrementally, but you find yourself in this position where you have to slam on the brakes, and that's exactly what happened. All of a sudden, 3.5 seconds lost.
You know, Bill, we were talking earlier about how Booth had his one errant misfire at Indy, finished 7th. That was also the first time that he'd finished anywhere other than 1st and 2nd this season. And he's about to go back to that here today, even if he does get caught by Shirazi, a 1st or a 2nd.
Yeah, it is so unique because Kundinger has been nowhere close to the performance he's having today. And that's the exact opposite of what Booth had at Indy, where, man, he just didn't seem to feel. Maybe he doesn't like the Midwest.
We, have to have a discussion if he doesn't like the Midwest. But coming back onto the main straight now, as we watch the battle for the lead in the GTMs, Corey versus Franco, about 0.3 of a second apart. Will the 11 go on the attack, or is he once again going to lift? He's going to lift. So I do believe from what we've seen, this is the the 11, just kind of sitting and waiting patiently, looking to spring his trap. But if he's too patient, Chris Pies, who is definitely no slow driver by any stretch of the imagination, is kind of hovering back there. Now, granted, he's in another class, but he could be a bit of a fly in the ointment in their battle.
It's a great point, and I'm a nerd for data, and you look at the differences between Ensing and Margarella right now. They are identical in terms of pace and competitor. Last lap, 49.7, 49.9, less than 0.2 between them. Fastest lap, 48.6, 48.5, less than 1/10 of a second between these two. It is a dead even race for 8.5 more minutes between them.
Peter Houston's back in pit lane once again, and I'm not exactly sure why. Checking to see. Oh, he's got a black flag. I think he ran through the incident limit.
Houston has a problem.
Well played, sir. Well
Thank you.
played. So stop and holds, and he's back out onto the track as we once again turn the attention to Carter Kundinger. Haven't shown a whole lot of him, but when we have, it's usually these shots that are nothing more than just looking at a car on its own. Now, he's 6 seconds ahead. Olsen continuing to gain. Is Carter really backing off that much, or does he have an issue?
I don't think he's got an issue. I think that Carter has spent, 6+ hours racing this car just the other day. And actually, Ensing and Margarella might go too wide down into this first chicane. No, it looks like they're going to stay single file. But I know that Carter's got a ton of seat time in this prototype, really even in the last handful of days. I'm pretty sure he's comfortable.
I hope so, because my worry was that it was a situation like Paul Gibson where he got some aero damage and is losing some straight line speed or something. But here you're going to see again, just the cars get held up. The nature of multi-class racing, you've given you take out there and wait your turn and just set the car up for the exit like this to go on by the Audi, no problem. And then set up for the next of the Lesmos.
I know I'm supposed to say neutral. Sorry, Joey. But Joe and Joey, both my Joes, I'm pulling for Margarella here. I'd like to see 6 different winners. Come on, Franco.
I kind of do too, just from the story aspect. I'd love to see that happen. It's always amazing when you get a wide variety of winners, because usually that means a close championship as well, when a bunch of different people are winning. So it'll be fascinating to watch, no doubt. Also, I know you've got your eye on the number 27 here, Joey. What's been going on with him?
Yes, in terms of big movers this race, Luke Schmidt in the number 27 car, up 21 positions so far. Started all the way back in the 39th spot, finds himself up into the 18th position. Just a great race so far for Luke Schmidt.
Yeah, doing fantastic out there. Obviously, he's passed some of the GT-AM drivers as well. Or am I getting that reversed? Is he a GT-AM and he's past the pro?
He is a GT, classified as a
yes.
GT-AM, but in the grand scheme of the GT class, they are all the same cars. That's a pass for position.
Absolutely. Well, Paul Gibson, it's back and forth again for Dominic Dornenberg, and this time looks like he's going to be able to stay ahead down into the chicane. Really wants this exit off the corner. Dominic going to stay with him, maybe. They've got Robert Rattray just in front of them, third place in the GTMs. He'll stay off to the right-hand side, let them through. Dornenberg not catching up.
I think maybe if there's one equalizing factor for the damage, it could be tire wear. You know, as these cars get more and more worn on their tires, Paul's car might be more consistent just based off of his speed and setup, and that might be what we're seeing out there.
That's very true. Sad news for the battle for the AM lead. Looks like Franco has lost about a second after he got a slowdown penalty. So the 11 has some work to do in these last 4 minutes. So we've got not much time left. In fact, I believe that's only going to be in the realm of about 3 laps here.
Man, those slowdown penalties have been killing the drama for this thing. It got Johan Shirazi a couple times and now Margarella. Come on, guys, let him race.
Yeah, it's Shirazi's still 3 seconds behind Ross Booth. Ever since that broke up, it's really come apart. There is Shirazi right now in the blue number 66 coming off of the first chicane. And doesn't look like he's gaining on Ross at this stage. Just seems like that time is getting bigger and bigger. But Ross Booth has been known for being dominant in these GT cars in the past. So this isn't too great of a surprise. Just, I'm sure, disappointing for those who thought that maybe they could take the fight to him this year.
Ross is so fast in those Porsches, no matter what racetrack it is. And a couple names we haven't actually said at all. Cam Bidwell is making a pass on Shane Hunter right now for the 16th position in the GTs going down the front straightaway. Good to see at least a somewhat of a close battle, because I know a lot of this stuff is starting to spread out a little bit.
If I know Autobahn, they have a history of things going crazy at the end. So again, I am not anticipating a calm finish just based on my experience with this league. We'll see. Things could still go haywire out here, especially if traffic just happens to play a certain way for some drivers. Right now, watching a string of GT cars down the backstretch up to the braking for Ascari. Chris Pye's here in the black and white Porsche. We used to seeing him over in the Porsche Club of America series, the sim racing series over there, and is usually up at the front. So I'm a little surprised that he's not performing a little better here.
He's actually up 10 spots from his starting position. Didn't qualify too well, but I think he's put together a pretty consistent race so far. Like we've been mentioning, he's just about a second and a half behind Franco Margarella, who's closed it back in for that lead in the GT AMs on Corey Ensing.
Yeah, that is back together half a second apart. So he's going to start to feel the draft now along the front stretch, down to the 2-minute marker to go. I don't think it's going to be one to go for Carter Cundier next time by, but I'll double check once we get away from this battle. Closing in. No, he's going to give a big lift into Rettifilio. I take that back. Cundinger's heading through the second Lesmo now. I don't think he's going to get around in time to get 2 to go. It's going to be white flag.
Just to keep an eye, Ross Booth still just chugging away laps here. I'm keeping an eye on this AM battle, and Margarella is right up behind Ensing as we still have Carter Cundinger working through a little bit of GT traffic himself.
Yeah, Cundinger's probably taking it nice and smooth with any of that traffic. On screen is the amateur GT battle lead battle. I'll get the words right eventually. Coming out of the second Lesmo. I've been theorizing that maybe Franco has just been waiting for the right time to strike. White flag being given to Carter Cundinger now. Everybody is on the final lap behind him.
I'll keep my eyes peeled on this GT AM battle and let you know if anything happens, but looks like Carter Cundinger is working his way through the first chicane for the final time.
So Carter about to get himself another victory in this league. I'll need to check the stats to see what number win this will be for him. It's going to be the first win of this season, surprisingly. Usually so good in this series. But Carter, also another driver that we see racing in PCA. But he's up in the prototypes this time. Here we go. If you're going to make the move, it's got to be now. And he's going to poke his nose out as Corey Ensing does not defend on Margarella. He's got the desired inside line. Can he outbrake him? They're about dead even into there. Still holding on wheel to wheel as they weave back and forth. Still no one willing to give up as they are going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Margarella's going to have the shorter distance in the track. He's going to pull out a little bit, but he drove through all those dirty marbles. Got to be careful in this brake zone here. They're still going to be side-by-side challenging into a braking duel. Margarella's hanging out front. Still side-by-side through the second chicane. Ensing finally yields the position, and Margarella crucially scoots out front. He's got the lead now.
And we got to go to Carter Kundinger because he approaches the checkered flag with an easy victory here and his first win of the season in the prototypes.
Ross Booth in the GT Pro lead comes around the final corner of the Parabolica. Nobody threatening him. He is going to take another victory in that GT Pro division.
Nicely done for Ross Booth. His third win of the season, his fifth podium.
Ensing just went off of the track. Oh no, he's going to get a slowdown. Unfortunately, Chris Pies is going to take that position. A prototype, Leif Peterson, got in the mix there, and unfortunately, Ensing went off track. Probably going to drop 2 or 3 more spots.
Bill, you got your wish because Franco Margarella is going to be our 6th different winner this season in the GTMs. This is a phenomenal streak, but Franco for now is going to be just celebrating the fact that he's on the top step.
Boy, he earned that one too. Nice run.
Unbelievable stuff. And that was just an amazing battle there at the end between them, going side by side all the way through both of the first 2 chicanes. I'm trying to think of when I've ever seen that happen through here. So it's been a fun one, but this is the replay of the very end where we had missed the off track there. And that is what sealed the deal essentially between the pair of them. Or is this actually where the battle started?
No, that was Leif Peterson going by there. You'll see Ensing just get in the dirty air, not get the car turned in enough, and then through the gravel straight through that final chicane.
Just absolute disappointment there for him. And let's see if we have a break or if we're going to results here. Let's go to the results of the race. And up at the top step, it is Carter Kundinger with Nathan Olson. Actually was only 4.7 seconds behind at the end. He was pushing. He just didn't have enough pace. Nate Gruchelski will be the one to round out the podium as Billy Smith gets 4th, exactly where he started. Poor Paul Gibson, the damage on his car that we think may have slowed down both the pit stop and his straight line speed caused him to suffer and have to settle for a top 5. Dominic Dornenberg was the one fighting with him much of the time and got 6, as Robert Tinsey was P7. Leif Peterson finished 8th today as Thomas Fisher was 9th, and the top 10 rounded out by Vance Bow. Colin Weatherholt, unfortunately, down 1 today. Didn't quite seem to be able to make pace in the prototype as Chris Sherburne was 12th, and Josh Wolf had some problems early on that we couldn't quite understand what was happening. He finished 13th, and Peter Houston with this black flag was the last one on the lead lap. Eddie Layton was 15th, and Mo Islam was 16th. Joey?
In the GTs taking home the overall win, Ross Booth in that 03 Porsche. Second place, Johan Shirazi. A shame that we didn't get to see that battle with that slowdown there, but Shirazi did a great job catching Booth. Nathan Jew, the final spot on the podium for the GT Pros there in the 3rd position. Ryan Wasilewski 4th, Wayne Castile 5th, David Shutt hanging on to 6th spot, Young Park in the 7th position, Bradley Haley in the Audi 8th, Franco Margarella taking home the GT-AM win there. And from what I recall, this is another new winner in the GT-AM division. Great to see. Christopher Pies moving up that spot to 10th on the last lap, and the rest is yours there, Soup.
And after Pies, if I can find out where we left off there, yep, we go to Eric Thomas. We got Corey Insing second in the AM. Even though he had that spin, he really didn't lose a spot in the amateur class. Robert Brattray right behind him. Robert Cass. Nicholas Davis had a nice run up 9 spots. Cameron Bidwell also doing well. Shane Hunter, an amateur, up his position as he's going to come home in what would be 17th, I believe, in class. We get to Luke Smith. How about 21 spots for Luke Smith? Well done. Jimbo Pfeiffer in the McLaren coming 19th in class. And then Scott Angelo 20th. Joe?
21st was Jason Iverson with Tom Hammond, and 22nd, Ed Eisenring, who was at one point looking at a podium in the AMS. Doesn't see that one come about. Sheldon Rosenbaum was behind him, 24th. After that, Dale Green, P25, and Brian Bennett, 26. Tommy Ryan was 27th today. Boyd Payne, P28, and then 29th goes to Chad Dick. Lionel Duprat was 30th today. Joey?
31st, Andrew Lunsford. Patrick McDaniel in the 32nd spot. Darnell Williams in 33rd, and then all of these other cars a few more laps down. Nick Olas, Sean Reese, Matt Gosh with that tow, Mark Kedrowski, J.R. Gregory, and David Perry.
That takes us to our winner for today's race in the prototype field, Carter Kundinger. And I guess the first and most obvious question is Carter, what were you pushing the entire way, or were you taking it easy at all? Because you made it look kind of easy today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be quite honest. I didn't feel like I was pushing that hard, but yeah, it was, it was just one of those days today where everything just kind of clicked. The setup was just on fire. My driving was pretty good, and was really honestly kind of fortunate with everyone behind me on the start, just kind of, backing it up into turn one. And I just pulled away from the start and didn't look back.
At the end, you saw 10 plus seconds over second place, but that eventually whittled down to 4.7. We were kind of debating if this was something legitimately damaging your pace, or if you were, in fact, backing off. Did you kind of take it easy at the end?
Yeah, definitely took it a little bit easier, especially with traffic. It just kind of happened that I conveniently came up to a bunch of close battles with a bunch of my teammates. So I didn't want to do anything too silly. I knew both for myself and then for my teammates, putting it like too wide when there's a group of 4 cars together and these chicanes is just never going to end well. So I think I definitely backed off a little bit, but yeah, I mean, definitely kept that gap in mind. Obviously I saw it go down to at least 6. I didn't see it the last couple laps because I was just focused on just staying on track. But yeah, just really was able to kind of manage traffic perfectly tonight, I think.
Well, this is your third ever win in Autobahn and your first of this season. So, what does that set you for the rest of the season? You've not been up at the top of the points, and it's not over by any stretch of the imagination. But you're going to be digging out of a hole.
Yeah, no, I think honestly coming into the season, this LMP2 field is pretty stacked. There's a lot of big names that have pretty big I ratings. So I really just, top 5s was kind of the focus this season. And like, I'd like to think that this is not a one-off race that I had, but honestly, I mean, I hope I can find pace like this for the remainder of the rounds, because that was pretty fun. Not gonna lie, that was pretty fun being out in front, and it's something that I don't get to feel very often in Autobahn, so I'm super thankful.
Carter, it's Soup here. I think it's all about the breakfast, man. What do you have for breakfast?
Oh, breakfast. Oh, yes. It was a nice apple fritter and a glazed donut. So
Okay.
I think that was the breakfast of champions right there.
There you go.
That answers one question that we had during the broadcast. Well, soak it all in, Joey. You said you don't get to feel that often, so go celebrate and make some memories.
Yeah, will do. I got a quick shout out to all the guys at Composite Performance. Obviously, 3 wins for Composite Performance tonight, which is awesome. So super proud of the guys. Got to give a shout out to Ross for GT Pro win and Franco for GTM win, and you guys. So thank you for the broadcast.
That was Carter Kundinger, your victor here today in the prototypes. The other for that composite performance was Ross Booth. Joey has caught up with him.
Congratulations, Ross Booth. It seems like just a few hours ago you were over at Le Mans taking home a second place in that MTech race. Hop on the virtual private jet over here to Monza and take home a win, man. How is it?
I'm pretty pumped up right now. Disappointed with myself in that M-Tech race on Saturday, and it's nice to come back and put down a good showing.
Well, you definitely put on a good showing here tonight at this Italian racetrack. What was the secret? Because it certainly looked like you had some pressure from Shirazi near the end of the race there.
Yeah, I think Shirazi, I'm not really sure what happened on the start. They got jumbled up in turn one, and I was able to build a pretty good gap. And then once Shirazi got clear of, I think it was Shut, he had really good pace. I think he was actually really the fastest car out there today. I think he just had a slowdown or something in one of the chicanes when we were battling on one of the laps. Shout out to him for racing me clean. And I'm just super, super stoked.
Well, I know that you get pumped up on these wins, and congratulations once again. And I know that you were a little bit off form last round at Indianapolis, off of the podium, but this is win number 3 this year, podium number 5. Is this just going to start the roll of podiums and win streaks again for you?
Um, we've had to really adjust to the new balance of power on the Porsche, and we just haven't hit on it since that's come out. But we're making strides and getting better each week. Shout out to everybody at Composite Performance, Rob and Park that are on the Porsche team. They're doing an awesome job in helping develop the car. Shout out to Dom and Mo, the admin team there over there at Composite Performance. They're doing a heck of a job keeping us all organized and focused.
Well, congratulations, Ross. Go get back on that virtual jet and get back home.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Well, looks like we do have our GT-AM winner, Franco Margarella, standing by with soup.
Franco, you got a copy?
Yep, I'm here.
Side by side, not through one chicane, but 2 chicanes. When did you know you had the pass made?
I didn't, to be perfectly honest with you. I knew Corey was right there. I just wanted to keep it clean so I didn't end both of our races. So it ended up, in my favor, thankfully.
You got up behind him with maybe 4 laps to go or so. Did you pick up a slowdown penalty and you had to climb back up again?
I did actually. I was about to make a move and I cut too much of the curb onto turn 1 on the entry and I had to slow down. But luckily I was able to keep in draft and keep up with Corey.
So why were you so quick at the end and we didn't see much of you early on? Were you just saving your stuff, or what happened there?
That's kind of exactly it. The 3 of us were right neck and neck almost the entire race, and I just decided to fuel save behind the 2 of them and let them battle it out and burn a little bit more of their tires than I did. So I may have been a little fresher at the end, but yeah, I was able to make my move and make it stick.
6 different races, 6 different winners in the AM class. You keep the streak going. Can you get a second one next week?
I would love that, but we'll see. It's a really competitive AM field this year, so I'm not gonna count my chickens before they hatch.
Really glad that we had a chance to talk to you. Keep it up. We'll see you down the road.
Appreciate it, guys.
Franco Margarella, your AM class winner today.
That's going to wrap us up for this evening. So a big thank you to the Autobahn group for bringing us on for coverage of this season. And also thanks to the team today, Joey, Soup, and Zach. The next race, Montreal, will take place January 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern. However, until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.